Matt Rhule said, "Don't go to a place where the expectations out
Outweighs the commitment.
outweighs the commitment." And I would argue that that could absolutely 100% be describing San Diego State from the fan base level. Um, there's been all the stupid comments about toxicity and all that stuff, and not trying to re-say it, but the fact is, butts in the seat matter. And obviously, if they do prices and they reduce it as much that it seems like JD Wicker and then we're talking about, from the outside looking in, I think that that is absolutely the case. Brady Hoke went 7-6 last year, and like that was a bad season, and everybody hated it and no good. You can't have a 7-6 season. I mean, there's Rhule said you're expected to win 10 games. I mean, that's what that means when you say 7-6 is just a horrible year. It means that
Yeah.
double digits is the only way. So trying to piece everything together, it sure sounded like the head coach of Nebraska suggested that Tony White pass on coming to San Diego State.
I took a different spin on it.
Ooh,
It
like it,
sounded
like it.
like to me he was telling him to pass on Syracuse because that they were in a tougher conference.
He just,
They
yeah,
probably didn't spend as much on their coaches as the other teams in their conference, and how they have expectations, which is they fired a coach after, not an awful season. I don't know what Syracuse's record was, but I think they started off pretty good this
I think they're
season.
fighting for. I think they're one game away from a bowl.
Yeah, so I took it as Matt Rhule was saying, don't take a Power Five job over a Group of Five job just because it's a Power Five job, and then maybe they give you a little
Interesting.
bit more money.
And
Go to where you're going to
yeah,
have the best chance to win. And I don't think Matt Rhule knows what's going on with the fan base at San Diego State and the expectations and whatever we want to rehash that's happened this year. I don't think Matt Rhule knows enough about it to make that comment based on that. I think he's strictly looking at it as, don't just take the Power Five job because it pays you $500,000 more a year over the Group of Five job. Because you got to out. That's the way I took it. I don't think Matt Rhule. I think Matt Rhule was saying, it was almost in a way saying, take the San Diego State job over the Syracuse job if they're both offered to you.
that's
Um,
interesting. Okay, now number one, you have me convinced. I agree with everything you just said. Then I want to ask you a follow up only because I think your tweet had led me to believe that Syracuse couldn't have offered yet. That if
yeah,
he that if he was offered, that if Syracuse couldn't have called him yet,
right.
because right, which would mean that he couldn't be talking about Syracuse.
No, but
That
I
that's
think
that's the
Matt,
piece of it.
Matt Rhule said a search firm has called me for Tony White's number, and the fact that Syracuse had just fired their coach less than 24 hours before that press conference made me believe that it was San Diego State who had called him last week
Right. So
about
he's
Tony
not
White.
completely. So he's not in his comments. He can't be talking about Syracuse then.
But he's aware
That's
Syracuse fired their coach, and Tony White just came from Syracuse. And there's a lot of chatter about Syracuse going after Tony
yeah,
White.
yeah.
So
No,
his
and I
comment
think the
about
point
which
about
job to take, his comment about which job to take is knowing the landscape of what teams are out there looking for a coach and where Tony White could fit based on where he's been in the past, Syracuse, San Diego State. Um, but my tweet was more along the lines of, there's no way he's been contacted already by a search firm to talk to Syracuse.
right, it would have to have before they let him
Which
know that
is
he
which my tweet meant was like, hey, San Diego State has already contacted um, Nebraska about talking to Tony White, insinuating
yeah,
that
yeah,
he's getting
yeah.
interviewed.
I know. I'm totally interested in all of those kinds of things, and I'm kind of with you.